In today's podcast, you'll learn how to transform verbs and adjectives into nouns to make your English more formal and concise. Or to say it another way, the transformation of verbs and nouns for the formation of more formal and concise English, especially in writing. Welcome to
Aprender Inglés with Reza and Craig.
Hi, my name's Reza.
And I'm Craig.
And with nearly 60 years of teaching between us, we're going to help you improve your English and take it up to the next level. How are you, Craig?
I'm very well, thank you. And I love the way you turned it around in the introduction and used some nouns in the second sentence. Very clever.
Yes, that's what it's all about today, turning verbs into nouns.
And we're going to test you. So make sure you're ready for the test and we'll see how many nouns you know from the verbs and adjectives that we're going to mention. But first this week, we'd like to thank our sponsor, italki.com. Reza, what is italki?
italki is a website that helps you find a private teacher. But it's not any old website. It's tailored to each individual student. There's a very wide variety of teachers on the italki platform, a range of native speaker accents. So we've got people from England, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, etc. And that's just for English. You can learn other languages there as well. They've got different specialities, business English, general English, academic English. They've got different types of qualifications and therefore different prices to suit every budget.
And another thing I really like about italki is that you can see a short video of the teachers just to see if you think you're going to get on with the teacher, you like their personality, the way they present themselves. And of course, if you don't, you've always got the flexibility to change your teacher and work with another one. And speaking of flexibility, you can also schedule the classes whenever and wherever you want. So you're location free. And obviously it fits in with your weekly schedule. There's no weekly or monthly subscription, so you're not paying in advance for your classes. You're just paying per class, which gives you, again, more flexibility.
If you're interested, follow the link in the show notes to this episode. So this is inglespodcast.com/597, episode 597. And sign up for free and book your first class. What's more, if you use the promotional code INGLES, INGLES, when you pay for your first lesson, you'll get a €5 discount on your class off the price of a minimum of €10. That's a €5 discount.
And again, the promotional code Ingles and the link to go to italki is on our website, inglespodcast.com/597. And thank you very much to italki for sponsoring Aprender Inglés with Reza and Craig. What's first this week, Reza?
Let's start off, as we often do, our favorite way, really, of starting off, a voice message from one of our listeners. It's Marcos from Uruguay.
Hello, Reza. Hello, Greg. This is Marcos from Uruguay. Just to make a long story short, I wanted to tell you that I started to listen to your podcast in 2019 while I was living in New Zealand. During that time, I wanted to improve my English, so I came across with your podcast, and it was the first one which I could truly understood, and also it was fun to do it. So I wanted to tell you thank you so much for this amazing job that you are doing it, and please keep doing it. I send you a big hug.
And a very big hug to you, Marcos, over there in Uruguay. Thank you for your kind words. Any comments, Reza?
Yes, that's interesting. You like the Southern Hemisphere, don't you, Marcus? So you're from Uruguay in the Southern Hemisphere and you lived in New Zealand for a while. Have you ever tried it up north? Have you ever come up to the Northern Hemisphere to see what it's like up here? Wow. That's interesting then that you lived in New Zealand. As I was saying earlier, we were talking about the service that Italki offers. You can get yourself a teacher with a New Zealand accent. And Italki, they've got them. Yeah. So Marcos will know all about that. It's a very interesting accent. So Marcos, thanks very much for your message. It was very clear. However, Craig, I did notice one or two things that could maybe be improved. Did you notice anything?
Well, one very, very small pronunciation point. You said to make a long story short. And it's a very common thing with Spanish speakers not pronouncing that final consonant sound, which is short. And I noticed this with my wife, who is from Valencia, Spain, so she is a Spanish speaker. And when she speaks English, she might say, speaking about a famous movie star, Harrison Ford. So again, she forgets that final consonant sound, the D at the end. So not Harrison Ford, but Harrison Ford. And because she's an amateur photographer, she often speaks about going away to the countryside to sit in a bird high. And it's not high, there's a D in that word. So she needs to say hide. So make sure all you Spanish speakers out there, that's including people from Uruguay, that you need to pronounce that final consonant on those words. So to make a long story short.
Yes, I liked your use of that expression, to make a long story short, Marcos. By the way, some people say to cut a long story short. You can also say that, to make a long story short or to cut a long story short. Marcos, you said, I came across with your podcast. The use of the word with there is wrong. So it should simply be, I came across your podcast, which means you found it without looking for it.
And another small thing, Marcos, you said the first one I could truly understood. But when you have a modal verb like could, and then you've got a verb, you need to have the infinitive of the verb without to. So it should be the first one I could truly understand, because the infinitive is to understand. Now, you did have that extra word truly in there, but you also have that modal verb. So after modal verbs, could, must, should, can, may, etc., make sure you're using the infinitive of the verb without to.
Craig, I've got a question for you. Here are two sentences. Which sentence sounds more formal to you? Option A. The company improved its service. Option B. There was an improvement in the company's service.
Well, it's the second one that sounds more formal to me. And I don't know if you agree, but as a general rule of thumb, a rule of thumb means a rule that is a guide for you. A general rule of thumb is that when the phrase or the sentence is longer, it's usually more formal. Would you agree with that?
Yes, yeah. That's one thing, that it's longer. But there's another thing. I think it's to do with nouns. So there's the length, but also the fact that the first sentence had the verb improved, but the second sentence had the noun improvement.
Yes, absolutely. And notice that noun improvement has the suffix ment at the end. So when we're changing adjectives or verbs to nouns, there are some regular endings that you need to think about, that you need to bear in mind. For example, to make a noun from a verb or an adjective, you could add to the end, so the suffix, the bit that comes at the end, could be tion, which is pronounced shun. Notice that weak form there, so it's shun. The same pronunciation is sion, again, shun. As we saw before with ment, meant. Then there's ance, unce. Again, that weak vowel sound there, the schwa it's called, the unce. That could also be ence, again, unce. There's ity, ity, nes, nes, al, and F. So we're going to give you examples of all of those suffixes, all of those endings in a second. But let's give a few basic examples first, Reza, on how these words change.
For example, if you take the verb to decide and you want to make it a noun, it's the suffix sion. So it becomes decision. Decide changes to decision. For example, the final decision was made yesterday.
And as Reza mentioned before, if you want to change the verb improve to a noun, it's improvement. We've seen a great improvement this year.
The adjective strong can be changed to a noun, and it's strength. It's th at the end. That's not such a common suffix, but you do get some adjectives changing to th at the end. For example, her main strength is communication.
And we've also got wide, haven't we? Width, and we've got broad, breadth. Another change is happy. So you probably know the noun of happy is happiness. There we've got the suffix ness. Money can't buy you happiness, Reza. But it makes poverty a bit more easy to bear.
That's true. But money can buy good coffee and nice chocolate.
It can, as we've seen today.
And that creates happiness.
Briefly, until you get on the scales and weigh yourself. So let's see if you can transform these sentences by changing the verbs to nouns. For example, they agreed to start the project. How would that change, Reza?
Well, I can think of two possibilities. They agreed to start the project. Could be they reached an agreement to start the project, or it could be they came to an agreement to start the project. So actually, there are two verbs that could go with the noun agreement. You can reach an agreement, or you can come to an agreement.
I've thought of another one. You can arrive at an agreement. Notice the different prepositions there. Come to an agreement, arrive at an agreement.
What about this one, Craig? Can you change the verb explain here? The manager explained the rules.
I could say the manager gave an explanation. Notice that collocation there, to give an explanation. So he or she gave an explanation of the rules, or offered an explanation of the rules. What about this one, Reza? Let me throw this at you. The students improved quickly. What's the noun of improved?
Well, that's easy. We've done that one already. We know that we add the suffix ment. There was rapid improvement, or I could say quick improvement, but rapid sounds better. There was rapid improvement among the students. And the reason rapid sounds better is because it sounds a bit more formal. And as we said, generally speaking, when you change a verb to a noun, it makes the sentence sound a bit more formal. So it sounds better that we use a slightly more formal adjective, rapid, than quick.
And here's another one for you. The company decided to close the branch. Notice the pronunciation on the past of decide there, because it finishes with a d. So we add the extra syllable, decided, like ended, for example. So the company decided to close the branch. So the noun of decide.
So that would be the company made a decision to close the branch. Or I could also say the company took a decision to close the branch.
So it's very important when you're using these nouns, when you're changing the verb or the adjective to a noun, that you pay attention, that you notice the collocation. So what verb will go with that noun that you've made, which collocates with the noun. So, for example, to agree is the verb. You can come to an agreement. You can reach an agreement. You can arrive at an agreement. Let's take a quick break here, because I know you listen to this podcast to take your English to the next level. But what about your speaking? Is your fluency improving? Are you happy with your speaking skills? My conversation course focuses on making you a more confident and more fluent English speaker. You'll join me and a small group of motivated students, and we'll meet on Zoom and have topical discussions, role plays, debates, and presentations that will expand your vocabulary and help you express yourself effectively in English. So be proactive and take the first step towards becoming a confident and fluent English speaker. Send me an email today to craig@inglespodcast.com and I'll send you details of the next online conversation course. Thanks for listening. Now let's get back to the podcast.
With the verb to explain, if we want to use the noun explanation, that often collocates with give or offer. For example, the manager gave an explanation, or the manager offered an explanation.
And with the verb to decide, what collocates with decide? What verb do you need? Well, you can make a decision. You can take a decision. So, for example, the company made a decision to take on new staff, to employ new staff. Or the company took a decision to take on new staff.
So, Craig, shall we break it down into categories of suffixes, typical endings for nouns?
Let's do that, Reza, but let's test you, the listener, and see if you can say the noun before we do. So we're going to give you the verb or the adjective, leave a very short pause, and as quickly as you can, try and say the noun before we do. So test yourself.
Here's our first group. Opt.
Option.
Locate.
Location.
Create.
Creation.
Perceive.
Perception.
Deceive.
Deception.
Receive.
Reception. So you probably noticed all of those nouns, the tion suffix with that pronunciation, that weak form un, location, creation, etc. So let's look at a different group. Admit.
Admission.
Omit.
Omission.
Precise.
Precision.
Decide.
Decision.
Suspend.
Suspension.
So that time the sion, same pronunciation of that suffix, shun.
Okay, here comes our next group. Refer.
Reference.
Prefer.
Preference.
Depend.
Dependence.
Adhere.
Adherence. So there's the ence suffix, ence, in that group. To see the word groups that we're testing you on, go to the website, inglespodcast.com/597, and there you'll see all of these words listed. Let's go to the next group, Reza. So let me start with the adjective or verb, resist.
Resistance.
Attend.
Attendance.
Appear.
Appearance.
Assure.
Assurance.
And I suggest you repeat the words after us so that you're getting the pronunciation correct on these suffixes.
So, like the previous two groups, the ence and the ance suffixes, they sound the same. You won't know there's a difference in the spelling pronouncing them because they both have the schwa sound. Reference ends ence. Resistance ends ance. But the ending sounds the same. Tricky in English to know how to spell it. That's the tricky part.
And it's the same with the other two groups as well, the sion and the tion, pronunciation both shun.
Here's our next group. Curious,
Curiosity.
real,
Reality.
equal,
Equality.
diverse.
Diversity.
So those all ended with the suffix ity. And our alert listeners will have noticed that all of those nouns ending in ity came from adjectives specifically. Curious, real, equal, diverse, not from verbs. All of them were adjectives.
Let's go to the next group. So we've got develop,
Development,
move,
movement,
achieve,
achievement,
refine.
refinement. Let's see if you can guess the suffix for the next group. Arrive,
Arrival,
approve,
approval,
refuse,
refusal,
arouse,
arousal. And there's that at the end, that schwa sound again in these words. Make sure you're practicing that schwa, arousal.
Craig, when was the last time you experienced arousal?
I think it was when I had the coffee and the chocolate biscuit.
I was going to say the same. It arouses me.
That's as best as it gets at my age, Reza. We've only got 2 more groups to go. So here we go with a different suffix group. Kind,
Kindness,
weak,
weakness,
tender,
tenderness,
polite,
politeness. And here comes our final suffix. Prove,
proof,
believe,
belief,
relieve.
relief. Now you may notice the ending of those words may sound similar, but if you listen very carefully, they're not, because the verbs to prove, to believe, to relieve, that final v sound has vibration. It's voiced. Whereas the nouns, proof, belief, relief, I'm exaggerating the f because it's only coming through my teeth. It's only coming from my mouth. That is an unvoiced sound. So listen back again, practice that pronunciation. There is a difference to those consonant sounds at the end. So here's a challenge for you. We chose today's topic, verbs or adjectives changing into nouns. We chose that by asking ChatGPT what grammar point we haven't yet spoken about on the podcast. And the only one that it suggested was this. But maybe you can think of an area of grammar for us to discuss on this podcast in the future. Are you better than ChatGPT? That's the challenge. Now, if you want to check, you can go to the website on a desktop computer or on a laptop computer. It doesn't work yet on mobile, but we're working on that. There's a search box if you go on a computer, and you can search for a grammar point and check if we've spoken about it in the past. If we haven't, let us know, and we will be more than happy to cover it in a future podcast. Reza, how can people let us know about that?
If you'd like to get in touch, perhaps the best way we think is by leaving us a voice message. You can use SpeakPipe. There's a link in the show notes. It's speakpipe.com/Ingles podcast. But remember, if you leave a message, it's a maximum of 90 seconds. You'll be cut off after a minute and a half. Craig, what about people who would prefer to write to us?
You can send your emails to me. I'm Craig, Craig, at inglespodcast.com. And to write to Reza, send your emails to belfastreza, Reza, at gmail.com.
If you're a Spanish speaker and you want to improve your English with either free or paid resources, you could visit the Mansión Inglés website. It's at mansioningles.com. And also, specifically for paid products, you can browse the online store. That's STORE, store.mansioningles.net.
And before we say goodbye and wrap up the podcast for this week, to wrap up means to finish. Before we wrap up today, we'd like to say thank you to all of our lovely Patreon supporters. And these are people who donate a little bit of money to help keep the podcast going. And you too can join our Patreon program. And by doing so, you get instant access to the transcriptions of this podcast so that you can read every word that we say. And you'll also be invited to a live Zoom chat with me so that you can practice your speaking in a very informal Zoom chat. So for more information, go to patreon.com. That's patreon.com/Ingles podcast and join our lovely community.
It would be nice to say the name of every single one of our Patreon supporters, but there's quite a few and we don't have time. So we'll do what we always do, which is to mention the people who've recently joined the scheme. This month are new sponsors, and they are Gerardo, Paco Morillas, Esther, Alicia Criado, and Lola. Thanks to you and all our Patreon supporters.
Yes, thank you very, very much. Reza, what are we going to talk about next week?
Next week's episode is entitled From Snooze Buttons to Ice Cream Cones, Curious Inventions That Changed Our Lives.
Join us next week to speak about that and learn some new vocabulary. And until next time, thank you for listening this week. It's goodbye from Reza.
And it's goodbye from Craig.
If you enjoyed this podcast, it would really help us if you mention it to a friend or family member so that more people can listen. And we remind you that the music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.